Hello and welcome to All About Billings. We are a show dedicated to discovering the people who make Billings a great place to work and live. We will interview local business people, community leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and entertainers and learn from their successes, their failures, and their connection to Billings. I'm your host, Nancy Brook, broker and owner at Billings Best Real Estate. And today it is my pleasure to have as my guest Seth Royal Kroft. Now, Seth is not only a gallery owner in Downtown Billings, but he's also a photographer, and I am really excited to learn all about his adventures. So let me welcome you to the show today, Seth.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, well, I loved reading about you on your website. It sounds like you've been doing photography since you were just a young boy. Growing up in Billings, right?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, here and there as a kid. Like I said, yeah, the disposable cameras you buy at the checkout line of a grocery store, and my mom had a camera I'd sometimes play with a little bit as a kid. But yeah, didn't really get into it until adulthood, though.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, but it sounded like you just would just take all sorts of pictures and have fun with it, and it was kind of play for you.
It was, certainly.
Yeah. And so then how did that expand? So you started off as a child dabbling in cameras. I know you've continued to do photography all throughout your high school years, after high school.
Yeah, like I said, as a kid, it was more just kind of for fun and playing around, and lots of pictures of your hand and your pockets in the ground and things like that.
I still do that, by
right.
the way.
And yeah, but then in high school, I'd say was when it kind of started piquing the interest a little bit, and started trying to take pictures of wildlife a little bit. And then as a senior at Billings West here, I attended the Career Center, and they had a 2-hour photography class at the Career Center that I took at the end of my high school.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, and so that was, I would say, kind of the start, really.
Well, and with photography, you not only have like composition, which is important, but you also have like all the technical aspects like lighting and the frame and aperture and all that. So where did you start? Just kind of taking pretty pictures and then started focusing on more technical aspects?
I'd say started with not so pretty pictures. It's definitely a trial and error skill set. But yeah, so in terms of the technical side, after high school I worked at Best Buy for a couple of years, and I started selling cameras, and so that prompted me to do research and play around with them. My managers there always encouraged me in free time to pick up a camera and just play around with it, get to know the differences, and he would help me as a salesman and things like that. But yeah, and then come to find out on a personal level, I really took to it and bought my first DSLR camera while I was working there. I was, I think, age 19, and the goal was to photograph sports. That's what I was really into at the time. I was an athlete growing up, and I just thought it'd be fun to capture photos of other athletes and stuff. And yeah.
So how did you pursue that? So you were done with high school. So would you go to high school games, rodeos? Kinds of things?
Just I'd say just local public school sports events. So I was mostly a baseball player growing up, so I just go to the fields. I still had some friends or friends' siblings, that were playing Little League or Scarlet's Royals, Mustangs in town and stuff. But track meets, soccer games, and just kind of now and then go to some of those and pull the camera out and see what I could do.
Well, and doing something that's moving, that takes even a special skill, because you have to kind of anticipate and have things set up right before you actually snap the photo.
Definitely, yeah. Anticipation is a very important skill when photographing sports, definitely. And at the time, I had no idea how difficult sports photography was.
Yeah. Well, I imagine, sports photography, like news, those kinds of things too. You only have sometimes one chance to capture that perfect moment.
Right. Yeah, and that's why, especially with modern cameras now, they can take 120 pictures in a second. Because you do them all like that, so that you can pick out that perfect one. And they weren't that fast back then. I think that camera that I first purchased was it was pretty nice at 7. It could take 7 pictures in a second.
So I am just curious because I grew up in Laurel and I did photography for the annual, but back then we had to develop film, black and white film we developed. Do you ever do any of that these days? I mean, I don't know that you'd need to, but is there any reason to?
I would say the main reason to is for just creativity or nostalgia, or just to produce kind of a different look maybe than the digital look nowadays.
Okay.
Because because everyone's a photographer now. Because cameras have such nice, or cell phones have such nice cameras, digital and stuff. But if you're wanting to try and set yourself apart, maybe in just terms of style, but film photography actually is kind of making a comeback a little bit, and I think part of it is for the experience of shooting film, and it it forces you to kind of slow down, to plan your shots better. When you send a roll off for development, there's kind of that anticipation that builds, and and so like I did a little bit again when I was younger with just like disposable cameras and whatnot, and at the Career Center they had a dark room there, and so we got to kind of see what that process looks like a little bit. But I just recently actually purchased a film camera just for personal fun, again, kind of something different to play around with. So,
how fun. Well, like I said, I mean, that's many, many, many years ago, but I'm just kind of curious if people still do that, because you don't hear about it, of course, just day to day. Everyone has their cell phone, like you said. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of coming back a little bit, but it is difficult still to pursue because it's a little expensive, film. And as far as I know, nobody in the Billings area does film development.
Wow.
And so you have to mail it off to a print lab somewhere.
Wow. That's really interesting. Just a bit of nostalgia. I don't know if you remember this, but they used to have like Casper photos. I think there were 4 or 5 locations in Billings, and to think that there's none. There's nowhere to develop photos now. That's just fascinating.
Nope. Yeah, I mean, obviously Costco was always a popular place,
right?
And but they transitioned out of film to just digital, and then as of a couple of years ago, they completely shut down their photo printing completely.
Wow. Well, so you had fun with sports. And then what happened after that? Because now you're not taking pictures of sporting events, I've noticed on your gallery site.
I still do for fun. Again, kind of a hobby project a little bit. Again, like I'll go to some Mustangs games or occasional, again, if the Scarlets are playing the Royals and my schedule's free, it's kind of fun to go to things like that. But so the sports was somewhat short-lived in a way. I'd say it transitioned more from your traditional school sports, the football, basketball, baseball, things like that, to more like outdoor adventure type sports. So like skiing and snowboarding, or dirt bikes, or just cars, some different, kind of a different style of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So you still have fun with that. So after your couple years at Best Buy, it sounds like you decided to have an adventure and see the world and do some other things. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, 20-year-old kid who was college dropout from MSUB, trying to figure out what to do with his life. And so opportunity kind of arose to join a Christian missions organization and do some travel and volunteer work in other countries. And so I took to that, and the initial trip was 6 months, and got to go to Australia, Cambodia, Thailand, and China in that 6 months, and loved the community I was with, loved the work we were doing, loved the travel experience and getting to learn about other cultures and other ways of life, and so I ended up kind of staying with that organization for about 6 years.
And during that time, it looks like you did a lot of photography.
Did a lot of photography, yeah. I kind of became the team photographer a bit when we would travel, and I'd say what really drew me in on that was just capturing the memories for my teammates and I, because we're going to these new places, having all these new experiences, and oftentimes, it's hard to describe to our families and friends back home, what that's like, and so having that visual representation in photos was really important. And even for me now, in hindsight, having those photographs, I would say, is the main trigger for a lot of those memories from back then as well. You know, because it's like, oh, it was kind of a blur, and so like, oh yeah, what did we do in that place, and getting to go through and look at some of the pictures, and like, oh yeah, we met those people, and we worked with those kids, or and things like that, and yeah.
So were you also working on your craft as a photographer too, though, while you were? I mean, obviously you're capturing memories, but.
Yeah, so there was some actual education in there as well, and so this organization I was with, they actually have programs, like educational programs for all different types of skills. It was kind of like a college that you could do if you wanted. And so at one point I did a 3-month photography course. It was full-time. It was basically like a 2-year degree packed into 3 months, and so that was again where I learned a lot of the technical maybe side of things, and got all the head knowledge, and just learned about all kinds of different styles of photography, and then from there it's just been years of putting it into practice, and again still trial and error, trying new things, seeing what works, what doesn't, what is more my style versus not, and 'cause it's not always right and wrong. Sometimes it's here's how I like to do it.
Well, it's like everybody with a cell phone thinks they're a photographer, right? I mean, anymore. What did you find the difference to be from a hobbyist to becoming a professional? Where did that transition take place?
Well, I think there's a few different kind of debates on what defines professional, right? Some people it's just if you make money doing it. For some it might be a knowledge thing, or how nice of gear you have, I don't know, things like that. But I think for me it was just a combination, and so I turned the camera off auto mode, and learned what the different settings were and how they work together, and how to, like I said, produce a good image with a good composition, how to manipulate and control lighting, how to have a vision for a picture in your head and be able to go produce it, in real life. And yeah, there's a lot more depth to an image sometimes than what you might think.
Right. I mean, because sometimes, I don't know about you, but like you can see something and you can say, oh, well, that's an interesting, whatever, animal. But then there's things that you go, wow, I mean, that animal is like speaking to me. But the difference is how somebody captured it. It just can kind of blow your mind, the difference between somebody who's just snapping pictures and somebody who's a professional.
Yeah, well, even something as simple as, even if it's with a cell phone, as holding it up and clicking, taking a picture, versus, hey, I'm going to put the camera down here and look up, and just changing the angle of a photo can change it. Or, you're shooting horizontal, what if you did it vertical? Sometimes even just simple things like that can completely change the look and feeling and how the subject fits in that frame. And yeah, it changes the photo.
Right.
But now you take that and there's 1,000 different factors maybe that you can alter or change, and that'll affect what the final outcome is.
So when you did your traveling in Asia and Australia, what do you remember most about doing the photography there, aside from that intense class you did?
Like I said, it was just, like my pictures at the time, they were nothing special. I knew nothing about photo editing at the time, so like if you go onto, if I go into hard drives and find those pictures, they're like straight out of the camera, pretty plain looking, nothing special about them. But again, those ones were very memorable because of those experiences. When I took that trip, that was my first time out of the country, and first time I'd ever traveled by myself. And I met and befriended people from all over the world. And one thing that was cool photography related with that trip was while we were in Thailand, our team kind of helped volunteer at a international rugby tournament. And so, you had all these different teams coming in, and all of my teammates with the group I was with, they had kind of different tasks, but like I got to be a photographer for it, like, a little media pass, and got to walk around. And again, the pictures weren't that great, but that was, again, something memorable for me, that like, oh, I get to be a camera guy at this big rugby tournament, which was pretty neat.
When you mentioned that it was really fun to see the different cultures too, what stood out for you traveling when you're seeing a different culture?
Yeah, well, there's a term called culture shock. It's a real thing. Like I said, I'd never been out of the U.S. Until that trip at age 20. And so going to a place like Cambodia, Thailand, or I was in central China, not like big city East Coast. Food is a big thing, because it's, you can't just go get a cheeseburger or something, And our team, again, we were working with very poor communities, and rural communities. And one thing, we were taught was, if you go into a place and somebody's hosting you, whatever they give you for food, you eat it, and you're like, okay. And so you got to.
Sometimes they have bugs, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ate some bugs. And but again, like, you with your group, you guys, you kind of just take on this mindset of like, we're having fun and this is awesome. And yeah, we're gonna try all the things, And so, but the fact that, for us, it might just be this one-off, like, okay, I'm gonna try this food that I think is pretty gross, but whatever, it's just once. But it's like, that's what these people eat all the time, So that, but like the houses they live, the clothes they wear.
Simple, I bet. Simple houses.
Very, very
in a lot
simple.
of cases, yeah.
Again, very simple, very poor communities. Money wasn't really a thing for them. Like, I don't know what they were living on, but it wasn't much. And just the diversity was a completely different world, than what I grew up in here in Billings. Because as much as I love Billings and stuff, like, Montana isn't exactly the most diverse state.
Right, right. A lot of people have lived here many generations, and I guess, the culture shock is maybe people from a big city, from another part in the country,
Right. Well, it's funny when, often, a lot of rural Montanans, they'll call Billings the big city, right? Because we're the biggest in Montana, but it's like, I've been to cities in Asia that had 1 million+ people, and you couldn't even find it on a lot of maps.
Wow.
Like, because the populations were so high. And it's
right.
just like, oh, that's just some little one over there. It's just 1 million people.
Just 1 million people. Wow. Yeah. So after your trip to Asia, Australia, what was it like coming back?
So there's another thing called reverse culture shock.
I wondered.
So yeah, again, very real thing, because I was coming off this like 6-month life high, and so coming back to Billings was actually a little difficult for me. I hadn't seen friends and family in 6 months, and so trying to kind of reconnect with people who, again, had no idea maybe what I'd just been through in terms of experiences, and me not knowing how to like share and communicate that very well. It was a little hard, but at the same time, again, I became very appreciative for many of our Western comforts here, being able to eat whatever food I wanted, when I wanted, basically, drive my own car again, some of the simplicities in that I think we take for granted, and it's like, oh man, like this is nice.
Yeah, and you decided, so you went back to Asia, and
so I came
another 5.5 years or so?
Yeah, so I bounced around. So the main areas that I lived in were Australia. I did some training programs in Australia, and then I would do short-term trips for a few months to other parts of the world. I lived in China full-time for about a year, and then I was based out of Kona, Hawaii as well for a couple of years, to where that's where I did the photography program, and then I led a couple training programs, and then we'd take teams on these 2 to 3 month trips to other parts of the world. And so so that's where I kind of spent more time, but traveled to, I don't know, 20 something countries, and oftentimes we'd spend at least a month in a place.
Well, that's amazing for somebody your age to do all that.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, and it's fun, and you try not to compare too much, because now I have friends from all over the world where they've been to 80 countries, and you're like, oh wow, that'd be amazing. It's like, well, no, like I've been to 20. It's been pretty great. Like I'm extremely grateful for that experience, and so yeah.
And so you decided after you were done with that, you wanted to come back to Billings?
Yes. So towards the end of that time, so I had met my wife on my very first program in Australia when I was 20 years old, and we became friends. And it was several years later that we started dating. So it was actually towards the end of that, when I was 25, almost 26, that we started dating, got engaged, and decided that we wanted to kind of start a new chapter of life. And so we decided to move to Billings to get married and start life here. And so that was just about almost 7 years ago now. So I've been back in Billings for 7 years, and I've got the house and 3 kids and all that fun stuff now. And so it's been, again, new season of life, but very good.
So you have been doing photography ever since, right? And now you've started a gallery. So what has that journey been like?
Yeah, so when we moved here, the goal for me was to pursue photography, but you can't really just do it and start making money necessarily, or at least I couldn't. And so it started out as a on the side passion project while I got a job at Shields, just working. I was kind of a stock guy, and working retail. And so I did that for about 1.5 years. I did help them, launch like their Instagram page, kind of got into the social media and some of that stuff. But after about 1.5 years, I made the transition out of that and got into real estate photography. My mom and my sister were both realtors and had some connections there. And so I started doing that kind of part-time for myself, and then doing it actually part-time for Billings Tech guys. They do some real estate, photo, video, drone stuff, the 3D tours and things like that. And that's when I got my drone license to be able to fly drones around. And so I did real estate for a number of years, a few years full-time, and did the outdoor stuff more on the side, trying to build up a portfolio. And so especially in the summers, going out hiking and camping and going down to Yellowstone Park to photograph animals and building that up. And just over time and refining the skills and doing some networking and marketing and making the right connections, I was able to kind of start making some money through that. And as of 3 months ago, I've got my own gallery here in downtown Billings with the whole gallery is wildlife and mountain landscape work from around Montana and northern Wyoming, Yellowstone Park, Grand Teton, Beartooth Mountains, things like that. And so it's been quite a journey, getting that built up, but it's been great. And I get to do something I love.
Well, and for art, including photographers, sometimes the challenging part is just getting your work out there and getting seen.
Absolutely.
How did you get some momentum that way?
Well, one of the, I think, important things is building a website. You want to have some sort of online platform that you can direct people to where they can see your work. And so a website was one of those early steps for me, getting that built out with, trying to put my best work in front of people when they go on there. And again, from there, it's like I had a little bit of an advantage growing up in Billings, so I had some good connections around town with people. Mazevo Coffee, I have friends with some of those guys, and so they let me display some of my work in a couple of their locations for a couple of years, so some things like that. And but yeah, it's the networking part is a little hard, trying to get your work out there. It's hard, especially in this social media world where you put something online and maybe somebody sees it real quick and then it scroll past and it's gone, or something. And so
3-second attention span, maybe, if you're lucky,
maybe
right?
And especially nowadays with how the social media algorithms work and stuff. Like I know on my personal Facebook feed, I'll have like one friend post in every 10, and other things are just ads or group things or suggested things or random, sponsored ads from other businesses, or
Sure.
I don't know. It's yeah, it's horrible. It's like I don't even get to see what my friends are doing anymore because I'm bombarded with all this other stuff on it. And Instagram started out as a photo platform, and now it's extremely video heavy. Mm-hmm. And so you post a photo on Instagram, and maybe some people see it, but it's gotten a little harder in that sense.
Well, I think having that bit of momentum helps, but then there's a point where you said, okay, I'm going to go for it. What was that moment like? Because you have a wife and 3 kids.
I've had a couple of those moments.
Okay.
So the first moment where I had that was, let's see, 5.5 years ago, when I decided to quit my job at Shields. So that was my wife and I found out we were pregnant with our first son, and we'd been married a little over a year, and so maybe a little bit earlier than planned per se. But it was one of those where it's like our hope was that my wife would kind of be a stay-at-home mom and raise the kids. That was something we both valued and wanted. But also it was like, well, I can't support a family on my little retail salary there. And so realizing again with photography, it's like, well, if I can make it happen, there's much more capacity there.
Right.
And it's something that I love, and want to do. And so that was one of those big moments where I quit my job, and we took the little bit of savings that we had and we bought a 5th wheel camper, and we went and parked it, and we lived in that for 2 years, so that our living expenses were very low, which would help us to be able to kind of take on that risk of having some low income months.
Wow.
And so
That's bold.
Yeah, it was, we're both pretty minimalistic people, and so we're like, yeah, we could live in a camper for a while. And so my first son was born while we were living in that, and we did that for a couple of years. Lived in that until we were pregnant with our second one. But yeah, and I'd say the next step was a little over a year ago when I decided that I wanted to try and have a store, but didn't know how to go about doing that really, because that's a big step, and your costs go way up, and how do you know if it's going to work or not? And so I partnered up with Aspenwall Mountain Wear here in downtown Billings, which shout out to them. And so I worked out a deal with those guys to where we kind of shared their store space. I got to display my work on some of their walls, had a couple tables. They had their apparel. I had an office in the back. And we kind of just shared the load of work in retail together, but we just did kind of a simple, it was like a 10-month kind of agreement. Be like, hey, let's try it and see how it goes. And so we did that, and it went well enough, I would say, that when the space that I'm operating in now, which is only 1 block over from them, off the Sky Point there, when that became available, I decided it was worth the risk again, and we're going to try and take another jump here and see how it goes. And so been open 3 months now, and it's been going all right so far. And
so what is your address?
So the address is 207 North Broadway.
Okay, so right in the thick of it. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm the downtown, the Sky Point, downtown there. You've got Rock 31 on one corner, and I'm right next to them.
Okay.
Technically, I'm Suite 130. Because I'm part of the Valley Bank building,
right?
But I do have, sidewalk entrance.
Street access, great.
Yep.
Well, and let's hear about your website. If people want to see your beautiful work, I would highly encourage them to check it out on your website.
Yeah, so the website's just my full name, so it's SethRoyalKroft.com, and that's my email as well if you want to get a hold of me, SethRoyalKroft@gmail.com. And yeah, I've got, large portfolio of my images on the website. Although I will definitely recommend people to come down to the store because they look so much better in person.
Sure.
And because I've got prints on metal, canvas, paper, framed,
awesome.
Acrylic. Got big stuff, little gift items, and it's a cool place.
Well, it sounds like perfect place if you want to give a gift or a touch of Montana to somebody. It sounds like it would be a wonderful. Probably lots of different price points if you have minis all the way to canvas.
Yep, yeah, big range of pricing, and it's really a matter of how much you feel like spending, because I can print pictures really, really big. But yeah, and then even like this last week, I just started selling photo cards. So if you just want, a blank card, for a thank you, a birthday, graduation, you can come get a card, with a bison head on the front, or some nice landscape of Montana, and so those are kind of that, just a lower price point kind of grab and go type thing, and yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming here today. It has been such a pleasure to learn about you and your gallery and just your life. You're a very interesting person. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us on All About Billings, and we hope to see you next time.